The moment my niece spoke, my entire life split in two. Not because she said something shocking, but because she spoke at all. For 8 years, everyone believed she couldn't talk. Doctors, teachers, family, even me. But that day, standing in my sister's kitchen, she looked straight at me and whispered something that froze the blood in my veins. "Aunt Lisa, don't drink the tea. Mom planned something bad." Let that sink in for a second. A child who was supposed to be mute, warning me that my own sister had tried to poison me. And that was only the beginning. The front door clicked shut behind them. I stood in my sister Brooke's living room, listening as the taxi pulled away from the curb. The sound faded slowly, like it was taking normal life with it. Brooke and her husband Jard were officially gone, 5 days on a romantic Caribbean cruise, or so they said. 5 days of sunshine for them. 5 days of babysitting for me. I smiled to myself and turned around, ready to ask my niece Nola what she wanted to do first. Cookies, a movie, reading time, those were our things. Even without words, Nola and I had always found our rhythm. But she wasn't reaching for her iPad. She wasn't typing into her text-to-speech app. She was just standing there, staring at me. And there was something in her eyes I had never seen before. Fear mixed with urgency, like she was holding back an explosion. Then she opened her mouth. "Aunt Lisa, don't drink the tea Mom made. She planned something bad." This is where everything I believed about my family collapsed. Her voice was clear, steady, normal, like she'd been speaking her whole life. My hands went numb. The yellow-lidded thermos Brooke had pressed into my hands earlier suddenly felt heavy, dangerous. I couldn't move. I couldn't breathe. "Nola," I whispered, "you can talk." She nodded. And in that instant, my mind started racing backward, replaying every moment that had led me here. Let me rewind 6 hours, because nothing about this day made sense until I understood what came before it. My name is Lisa Raines. I'm 32 years old. I live in Columbus, Ohio, and I work as an accountant at a mid-sized firm. Not glamorous, not exciting, but stable. Numbers make sense, people don't. That need for control, it would save my life later. That morning had started quietly. Coffee, silence, a rare Saturday with no spreadsheets, no deadlines. I was actually enjoying the peace when my phone rang. Brooke, my older sister. Her voice was syrupy sweet, the kind she only used when she wanted something. "Lisa, I have the biggest favor to ask." She explained that she and Jard had booked a last-minute anniversary cruise. Very romantic, very expensive, very sudden, and they needed someone to watch Nola. Of course, I said yes. I always did. I loved my niece, truly. Even though communicating through an iPad could be exhausting, there was something about her, those big, observant eyes, the way she leaned against me when I read to her. Like my presence made her feel safe. Brooke always said Nola had a rare neurological condition, something discovered when she was 3, something permanent. Nothing could be done. And I never questioned it. Why would I doubt my own sister about her own child? Especially since I hadn't been around much back then. I had moved to Chicago shortly after Nola was born, career opportunity, good money, logical decision. I came home for holidays, the occasional weekend. By the time I moved back to Ohio 2 years ago, Nola had already been silent for years. The story was set. And I believed it. I moved back when our mother got sick. Cancer. Slow, brutal, the kind that drains everything from a person except their awareness. During that time, I started spending more time with Nola, reading to her, sitting with her, just being there. Even without words, we bonded. Our dad had passed 3 years before Mom, heart disease. Quiet man, dependable. When he died, the family lost its center. When Mom passed 14 months ago, she left behind a trust, about $1.2 million. Both Brooke and I had to approve major withdrawals. She also left me the family home since Brooke already owned property. At the time, I thought it was fair. Now, I wonder if my mother knew something I didn't. Sometimes parents see the truth long before the rest of us are ready. Around noon, I drove to Brooke's house. Perfect lawn, magazine-ready exterior, the kind of home that looks successful from the outside. Brooke greeted me with a hug. That alone should have warned me. She wasn't a hugger. "You're a lifesaver, Lisa," she said, flawless as ever, hair done, nails perfect, designer luggage by the door. Jard barely acknowledged me, nervous, sweaty, twitchy. I assumed it was just his personality. Brooke walked me through the house like I'd never been there before. Then she opened the fridge and pulled out a large thermos. "I made this for you," she said, pressing it into my hands. "Herbal tea for stress. You look exhausted." Something about the way she said it, too insistent, made my stomach tighten. But I smiled. Because that's what I always did. The taxi honked. Brooke hugged me again. Jard followed her out. The door shut. And then, Nola spoke. In the next moments, my niece would tell me a truth so horrifying it would rewrite her entire childhood and expose a plan that had been unfolding right under my nose. I lowered myself to my knees so I was eye level with her. The thermos was still clutched in my hand, but now it felt like a live wire. I gently placed it on the kitchen counter, sliding it as far away from us as possible. "Nola," I said softly, keeping my voice steady even though my heart was racing. "Can you tell me exactly what you mean?" She swallowed. "I can talk," she said again, slower this time. "I always could. Mommy made me stop." That single sentence rewired everything I thought I knew. The room felt like it tilted. I had to put my palm flat against the floor to ground myself. You were never mute," I asked. She shook her head. "No, Aunt Lisa." And then, like she'd been waiting years for permission, she told me everything. Nola wasn't born with anything wrong. No neurological condition. No damaged vocal cords. No mystery illness. She talked early, actually. Her first word came before her first birthday. She sang made-up songs, asked endless questions, laughed loudly. A normal, happy toddler. Until she was 3. This is where the truth gets hard to hear. One afternoon, she got thirsty while playing upstairs. She patted down the stairs quietly, like kids do, not wanting to be told it wasn't snack time yet. Her mom was in the kitchen, talking on the phone. Nola stood in the hallway, unseen. She didn't understand everything. She was 3, but she recognized names. Aunt Lisa, money, out of the picture. Her mother's voice was cold, not the cheerful, performative tone she used around others. "When your dad's gone, then Mom, it'll all be ours. She trusts me completely. She's so stupid." Nola didn't know what out of the picture meant. But she knew, Aunt Lisa. And she knew that word, stupid, wasn't loving. The next day, innocent and confused, she asked her mother what it meant. That question changed her life. Brooke's reaction was immediate and terrifying. She grabbed Nola's arms too tightly and knelt down so they were face to face. "If you ever speak again," she said, "something terrible will happen to Aunt Lisa." Nola's eyes filled with tears as she repeated the words to me. She said my voice was dangerous, that every word I said could hurt you. A 3-year-old doesn't understand manipulation. But she understands fear. And she understands love. Nola loved me. So she made a decision, no child should ever have to make. She stopped talking. I sat on that kitchen floor, my sister's spotless tile cold beneath me, tears streaming down my face. 5 years. 5 years of silence, not because she couldn't speak, but because she was protecting me. A child sacrificed her voice to save my life, and I didn't even know it. Brooke didn't just let it happen. She used it. She took Nola to doctors, played the role of the concerned mother, collected a diagnosis of selective mutism, but told everyone else a different story. Neurological, she'd say. Born that way, nothing can be done. She controlled the narrative, controlled the records, controlled who saw what. And because I was living out of state, visiting twice a year, I believed her. Why wouldn't I? She was my sister. I looked up at the mantel. There it was. The crystal plaque. Mother of the Year. Awarded by the community center 2 years ago. People praised her patience, her devotion, her strength raising a special needs child. I felt something dark twist in my chest. That award wasn't just undeserved. It was earned through abuse. What else have you seen, sweetheart? I asked quietly. She hesitated, then spoke again. When you're quiet, she said, people forget you're there. And that's when I realized the worst part. Silence made her invisible. Adults talked freely around her, assuming she didn't understand or couldn't tell anyone even if she did. She saw her mother practice my signature over and over on scrap paper. She heard phone calls about the trust, and before Lisa figures it out, she watched her father grow smaller, quieter, afraid. And 2 nights ago, she overheard the plan that finally pushed her to break her silence. They were in the kitchen, Nola said, talking about the tea. I felt my stomach drop. She said it would make you really sick, not forever, just enough. She paused. And while you're gone, they were going to drive somewhere and take all the money. Indianapolis. A lawyer. Forged papers. My sister had planned to poison me just long enough to steal everything. This wasn't impulsive. It was calculated. I pulled Nola into my arms and held her tightly. You saved me, I whispered. You know that, right? She hugged me back just as hard. I couldn't let Mommy hurt you, she said. Not anymore. I stared at the thermos on the counter. Yellow lid, innocent looking. Evidence. Something cold settled into my chest, not fear. Focus. Brooke thought she had 5 days. She thought I'd be helpless. She was wrong. The next decision I made would determine whether my sister walked free or lost everything she'd spent years trying to steal. I didn't scream. I didn't panic. I didn't run out of the house. Instead, something strangely calm took over. The kind of calm you feel right before you make a decision that can't be undone. I looked at the thermos one more time, then slid it into a grocery bag and sealed it tight. Evidence doesn't matter if you contaminate it. This was no longer about fear. This was about strategy. Nola, I said gently, I need you to stay right here for a minute, okay? She nodded, wide-eyed but trusting. The first call I made wasn't to the police. It was to someone I trusted with my life. Her name was Gwen Mercer. We'd met in college, study partners turned real friends. She went into nursing. I went into accounting. Different worlds, same loyalty. Gwen was the kind of person who showed up when things got ugly. She answered on the second ring. Hey, Lisa, what's up? Gwen, I said, my voice shaking despite my efforts. I need you to come to Brooke's house right now. Something happened. Something really bad. She didn't ask questions. I'm on my way. That's how you know someone is real. 40 minutes later, she was at the door, still in scrubs, hair pulled back, eyes sharp. One look at my face, and she pulled me into a hug. "Talk to me," she said. So I did. Everything. The tea, the plan, the forged signatures, and Nola, the child who had carried a secret for 5 years to keep me safe. When I finished, Gwen was quiet for a long moment. Then she walked over and knelt in front of Nola. "You're the bravest kid I've ever met," she said softly. Nola almost smiled. Gwen stood and turned to me. "Okay," she said, "we do this smart." Those words changed everything. "First," Gwen continued, "that tea gets tested. I know someone at the hospital lab, night shift, she owes me." She pulled gloves out of her purse, because of course she did, and carefully extracted a sample. "Second," she said, "we need more proof. Plans like this don't exist in isolation." I looked at Nola. "Honey," I asked, "do you know where your mom keeps important papers?" She nodded. "There's a drawer in the office. It has a code." "How do you know the code?" Gwen asked gently. Nola's eyes dropped. She never noticed me. Silence didn't just hide her, it exposed everything else. The office looked staged, perfect, immaculate. A desk, filing cabinets, and one locked drawer with a digital keypad. 3:15, Nola said. March 15th, Brooke's wedding anniversary. I entered the code. The drawer opened, and my stomach dropped. Inside were stacks of documents. Bank authorization forms. My signature, almost perfect but not quite. I knew my handwriting. The loop on my capital L was wrong. "She practiced," I whispered. Gwen nodded grimly. Next, bank statements. 14 months of withdrawals, all under $15,000. Carefully designed to avoid triggering federal alerts. Total stolen, around $180,000. This wasn't desperation. This was a system. Then came printed emails. Between Brooke and a lawyer in Indianapolis. They discussed emergency transfer of trust assets. They referenced my mental instability. A meeting scheduled for day 4. The same day Brooke thought I'd be hospitalized. Then I found a folder. Lisa Mental Health. My hands shook as I opened it. Inside were handwritten notes. Fabricated episodes, fake paranoia, lies about depression and erratic behavior. She was building a paper trail, planning to destroy my credibility if I ever fought back. My sister wasn't just stealing my money, she was erasing me. Gwen photographed everything. "This is premeditated fraud," she said. "Years of it." My accountant brain kicked in. Dates, patterns, numbers. Numbers don't lie. And these numbers told a very clear story. Then Gwen's phone buzzed. The lab results. The tea contained a powerful laxative compound mixed with a sedative herb. Not lethal, but incapacitating. Hospital level sick for 48 to 72 hours. Exactly as Nola said. "She didn't want you dead," Gwen said. "She wanted you gone." And that distinction made it even more terrifying. There was one more call to make. Kevin Calloway. Old college friend, law school, now an assistant prosecutor. I explained everything. When I finished, he didn't hesitate. "This is fraud, forgery, attempted poisoning, and child abuse," he said. "This crosses state lines, federal level." "What do I do?" I asked. "You let us handle it," he said, "but she can't know you're onto her." He paused. "You'll need to pretend her plan worked." I looked at the thermos. I had to act sick. Very sick. For 3 days. The hardest part wasn't fear, it was pretending. The next step required me to become exactly what my sister thought I was: weak, helpless, and completely out of the way. I've balanced six-figure accounts under pressure. I've sat across conference tables from people trying to intimidate me. None of that prepared me for the hardest role of my life: pretending to be helpless. Because the most dangerous lies are the ones people want to believe. I sat on Brooke's living room couch, staring at my phone. Nola sat beside me, knees tucked up, watching my face carefully like she always had. Even now that she could speak, old habits clung to her. She observed everything before reacting. I took a slow breath and dialed Brooke's number. It went straight to voicemail. Perfect. I waited for the beep and let my voice break. Brooke, something's wrong. I've been sick all night, throwing up, dizzy, I can barely stand. I think I need to go to the hospital. I paused, letting my breath shake. Nola's okay. Mrs. Patterson can take her if I have to go to the ER. I'm so sorry to ruin your trip. Click. That message was bait. My hands were steady when I set the phone down. Gwen, sitting across from me, raised an eyebrow. That was disturbingly convincing. Years of watching Brooke fake concern, I said. I took notes. 2 hours later, my phone buzzed. A text from Brooke. Not a call. Not panic. Not concern. Just words on a screen. Oh no, feel better soon, don't worry about Nola. Mrs. P is great with kids. Rest up. See you in a few days. I stared at the pink heart emoji. That was the moment I stopped hoping I was wrong. She didn't ask which hospital. Didn't ask to speak to her daughter. Didn't offer to come home. Gwen leaned over to read it. Your sister, she said flatly, is not even pretending anymore. While I played the role of the sick sister, the real work began. Gwen's husband Mark worked in it. He stopped by that evening with his laptop and a serious expression. Jard messed up, he said. How? I asked. Location services. Jard had posted a selfie that morning. Coffee cup, forced smile. Geotagged. Indianapolis, Indiana. No ocean, no cruise ship, no Caribbean. They weren't even trying that hard. I went back to the office drawer, searching for anything we might have missed. That's when I found the letters. Handwritten. Dated during our mother's final months. They were from Brooke. To our dying mother. My hands shook as I read. You always favored Lisa. She doesn't have responsibilities like I do. I have a child. If you ever loved me, you'd change the will. The manipulation was brutal. Calculated. Cruel. Then I found Mom's response. The handwriting was shaky, weak, but the message was firm. I will not punish Lisa for being responsible. I will not reward greed. The trust stays equal. I am disappointed in who you've become. Even dying, my mother protected me. Nola stood in the doorway as I sat on the floor with the letters. Grandma knew, she said softly. I looked up. She told me once when Mommy wasn't there, Nola continued. She said something was wrong in Mommy's heart. I swallowed hard. She knew, I said, and she trusted you. That night, Kevin called with updates. Police were briefed. The FBI looped in. Interstate fraud. Attempted poisoning. And child psychological abuse. The Indianapolis lawyer, Warren Ducker, had already been contacted. He was cooperating. He had doubts about the signatures, Kevin said. This meeting is going to happen, but not the way your sister expects. The plan was simple. And brutal. Let Brooke walk into it. Sometimes the best trap is letting someone finish their own lie. For the next 2 days, I played my part. Day 2 text. Still so sick. Doctor thinks food poisoning. Strange, right? Day 3 text. Barely keeping water down. So weak. Please don't cut your trip short. Each message was carefully crafted. Each one fed her confidence. Each one made her believe she was winning. Predators relax when they think the prey is done fighting. Meanwhile, Nola gave her statement. Properly. With a child advocacy specialist and a psychologist present. I watched through the glass as she sat in a chair too big for her, feet dangling. When she spoke, her voice didn't shake. She told them everything. The phone call when she was 3. The threats. The fear. The silence. The tea. When it was over, she looked at me and said, My voice feels tired, but good, like I finally came up for air. I cried. One more day, I told her that night. She nodded. One more day. The next morning, my sister would walk into a law office, believing she was about to steal everything, while the walls quietly closed in around her. Day 4. I didn't sleep the night before. Not because I was scared. Because I was waiting. Waiting is its own kind of torture when you know the truth and the other person doesn't. It was 10:15 a.m. in Indianapolis. I wasn't there physically, but I was watching everything. Kevin had set up a secure live video feed from inside the law office. Legal, documented, controlled. On my screen, the lobby camera showed polished floors, neutral art, and a receptionist smiling like it was any normal Tuesday. Beside me on the couch, Nola held my hand. Gwen sat on my other side, arms crossed, focused. Then the front door opened. Brooke walked in first. Perfect posture, professional dress, modest jewelry, calm confidence. She carried a leather folder, the same one from her home office. Jard followed behind her. He looked awful. Sweaty, pale, eyes darting like a trapped animal. One of them believed this plan would work. The other already knew it wouldn't. They checked in. Smiled. Were led down the hallway to the conference room. Inside, 3 people waited. Warren Ducker sat at the head of the table. 2 others sat beside him. Brooke stopped just short of the door. I thought this was a private meeting, she said, that familiar honey-sweet tone slipping out automatically. Ducker didn't smile. Please have a seat, Mrs. Whitford. These are Detectives Morrison and Park. For the first time, I saw hesitation flash across Brooke's face. Just for a fraction of a second. Then the mask snapped back into place. That mask had saved her for years. Today it would fail. They sat. Detective Morrison spoke calmly, politely. She asked Brooke to confirm her identity. Her role as co-trustee. Her relationship to me. Brooke answered smoothly. Confidently. Still convinced she could control the room. Then Morrison placed 2 documents side by side. One was the forged authorization form. The other was my verified signature from bank records. Can you explain why these don't match? Morrison asked. Brooke didn't even blink. My sister has inconsistent handwriting, she said. She's unstable. I have documentation. Detective Park leaned forward. We've reviewed your documentation, he said. Her employer describes her as exceptionally detail-oriented. Her physician confirms she's in excellent health. Colleagues describe her as stable and reliable. The room shifted. Reality doesn't argue. It waits. Morrison slid another file forward. 14 months of unauthorized withdrawals. $180,000. Brooke opened her mouth. Then Morrison placed another document on the table. And lab results from the tea you prepared. Jard made a sound, half gasp, half whimper. Brooke froze. Sedatives. Laxatives. Hospital-level incapacitation. This wasn't accidental, Morrison said. This was planning. Brooke's expression hardened. Then Morrison picked up a tablet. There's one more thing. She pressed play. Nola's voice filled the room. Clear. Steady. I stopped talking when I was 3 because my mommy told me my voice would hurt Aunt Lisa. I squeezed Nola's hand. On screen, Brooke's face drained of color. The recording continued. The threats. The silence. The tea. When it ended, the room was silent. Truth doesn't need volume. It needs space. That's impossible, Brooke said sharply. She's mute. Morrison's voice was gentle now. Selective mutism, she said, caused by fear and trauma. You terrorized your child into silence. That was it. The mask shattered. Brooke's voice rose. She was supposed to stay quiet. Jard stood abruptly. I want a lawyer, he said. I'll cooperate. Brooke turned on him with fury. You coward. Detective Park stood. Mrs. Whitford, you're under arrest. The handcuffs clicked shut. That sound was the end of everything she controlled. I watched as my sister, the perfect mother, the admired community figure, was led out in silence. Nola squeezed my hand. It's over, she whispered. I nodded. Yes, I said, it is. But justice wasn't finished yet, because the most important decision wasn't about money or revenge. It was about where a child would finally feel safe. 2 weeks later, we were sitting in a courtroom. Not the dramatic kind you see on TV. No wood paneling, no audience. Just fluorescent lights, uncomfortable chairs, and the quiet weight of decisions that change lives. Sometimes the most powerful moments happen in the least impressive rooms. Nola sat beside me at the front table. She'd chosen her outfit herself, a purple dress, her favorite color. Her hair was neatly brushed, though she kept smoothing it down nervously. Her foot bounced under the table. I squeezed her hand gently. You're doing great, I whispered. She nodded. Across the room, paperwork shuffled. The judge reviewed files thick with evidence, fraud, forgery, attempted poisoning, and 5 years of documented psychological abuse. Jard wasn't there. He'd signed away his parental rights in exchange for cooperation. That told me everything I needed to know. Some people choose safety, others choose silence. He chose himself. The judge looked up. He was older, with kind eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. I've reviewed the emergency custody petition, he said. Given the circumstances, I'm prepared to rule. Then he did something unexpected. He looked directly at Nola. Not at me. At her. Young lady, he said gently. I understand you've recently started speaking again after many years. That takes courage. Nola's grip tightened. I'd like to ask you something important, he continued. Where would you like to live? The room went still. This was her moment. Nola looked at me. Then at the judge. Then back at me. She stood up. 8 years old, barely 4 feet tall. But her voice didn't shake. I want to live with my Aunt Lisa, she said. The judge smiled slightly. And why is that? Nola took a breath. She listened to me, she said, even when I couldn't talk. She paused. She read me books. She sat with me. She never made me feel broken. Then, after a moment, and she makes really good pancakes. Soft laughter rippled through the courtroom. Even the judge smiled. Healing doesn't always sound dramatic. Sometimes it sounds like pancakes. The pen scratched across paper. Emergency custody granted to Lisa Raines. Just like that. Walking out of the courthouse, Nola didn't stop talking. About the judge. About the echo in the hallway. About a bird she saw on the windowsill. 5 years of silence had turned into a flood of words. I listened to every single one. That night, we ate dinner in my apartment. Our apartment. The spare room was already halfway transformed. Purple walls, bookshelves, a reading corner by the window. Nola twirled pasta on her fork. "Aunt Lisa," she asked. "Yes, sweetheart. Can I tell you about dinosaurs?" I smiled. "Absolutely. This is what freedom sounds like." She talked for 25 minutes. About which dinosaurs were overrated. Why movies lie about velociraptors. And why ankylosaurs were basically tanks. I nodded seriously, as if this information might be on a test later. She beamed. Therapy started the following week. Some days were hard. There were moments when she went quiet again. When fear crept back. But there were more good days. Days when she laughed. Sang. Came home from school bursting with stories. She was the mute girl anymore. She was just Nola. Brooke took a plea deal. Multiple felony charges. I didn't attend the hearings. I had better places to be. The trust was audited. Most of the stolen money was recovered. I became sole trustee. Careful, intentional. Prepared. Stability is its own form of justice. Sometimes I think about my mother. About that letter she wrote while dying. About the quiet warning she gave her granddaughter. She saw it, I tell Nola. She always did. Last Saturday, we had breakfast on the balcony. Pancakes, orange juice, morning light. Nola told me about a dream involving a waffle castle and a very polite dragon named Gerald. It made no sense. It was perfect. She looked at me and said, "Thank you for listening." I squeezed her hand. Always. The quietest people aren't weak. They're waiting for someone safe enough to finally speak. There's something people don't understand about quiet children. They assume silence means weakness, confusion, inability. But silence is often a survival strategy. After everything's settled, the court dates, the paperwork, the locked doors finally opening, I started noticing things I had missed before. Nola didn't just talk now. She listened in a way most adults never do. She noticed tone shifts, facial expressions, the way someone paused before answering. Years of being silent had sharpened her awareness. She's very perceptive, her therapist told me during one of our sessions. That didn't come from nowhere. It came from watching. From surviving. Silence didn't erase her, it trained her. At night, after homework and stories, she sometimes asked questions that didn't sound like an 8-year-old's. Why didn't anyone notice? Why didn't they believe me? Why did Mommy hate you so much? Those were the hardest. Because the truth is, people often believe the loudest voice in the room. Brooke was loud. Confident. Performative. She filled spaces with certainty. And I was quiet in a different way. Polite, non-confrontational, trusting. Manipulators thrive where doubt is mistaken for kindness. One evening, Nola asked something that stopped me cold. Did you ever feel like something was wrong, but you ignored it? I thought about the hugs that felt forced. The tea that felt too insistent. The things that made my stomach tighten, but not enough to make me speak up. Yes, I said honestly, I did. She nodded. I felt that way too, she said, every day. That was the moment I realized she and I weren't so different. Healing didn't happen all at once. Some mornings, Nola woke up scared. Some nights, she needed the hallway light on. Sometimes she went quiet, not silent but withdrawn. And that was okay. We didn't rush it. Because recovery isn't about forcing noise. It's about creating safety. People asked me if I felt angry. At Brooke. At Jard. At myself. The answer surprised even me. I didn't feel anger. I felt clarity. Anger keeps you tied to the past. Clarity sets boundaries. I stopped over-explaining. Stopped justifying. Stopped shrinking myself to keep others comfortable. Numbers had taught me something important long before this story ever began. If something doesn't balance, you don't ignore it. You investigate. One afternoon, while we were baking cookies, Nola looked up at me and said, "You know, I don't think my voice was ever gone." I paused. "What do you mean?" "I think I was just saving it." That sentence will stay with me forever. That's when I understood the real lesson. Voices don't disappear. They wait. For safety. For belief. For someone who listens without demanding proof first. If you're watching this and something in your life feels off, a relationship, a pattern, a behavior you keep excusing, pay attention. Your instincts are data. And data doesn't lie. In the final part, I'll tell you what this experience taught me about trust, boundaries, and why listening, real listening, can change the trajectory of an entire life. There's a moment that keeps replaying in my mind. Not the arrest. Not the courtroom. Not even the day Nola spoke for the first time. It's quieter than that. Because the most important changes rarely announce themselves. It was an ordinary Tuesday evening. Homework was done. Dishes were drying in the rack. The apartment was calm in that gentle, end-of-day way. Nola was sitting on the floor coloring, humming to herself. Humming. She froze when she realized I was watching. "Sorry," she said quickly. "I didn't mean to be loud." My heart broke a little. I knelt beside her. "You never have to apologize for making noise," I said. "Noise means you feel safe." She thought about that. Then she smiled. And kept humming. That was the sound of healing. People talk a lot about finding your voice. But that phrase gets it wrong. Voices aren't lost. They're protected. Silenced voices are usually guarding something fragile. Hope, love, survival. Nola didn't stop speaking because she was weak. She stopped because she was brave. And that changed how I saw myself too. For most of my life, I avoided conflict. I smoothed things over. Assumed good intentions. Trusted that love would always be enough. But love without boundaries isn't kindness, it's exposure. What this experience taught me is simple, but not easy. You don't owe access to people who hurt you. You don't need proof to trust your instincts. And silence, yours or someone else's, is information. Listen to it. Nola is thriving now. She laughs loudly. Argues passionately. Asks endless questions. Her teachers say she's curious, observant, empathetic. I smile every time I hear that. Of course she is. She always was. She didn't change, her environment did. As for me, I stopped ignoring the quiet warnings. I stopped calling discomfort overthinking. I stopped believing that being calm meant being powerless. Strength isn't volume. It's awareness. Last weekend, we were walking through the park. Nola ran ahead, then turned and shouted, "Aunt Lisa, watch this." She spun in a circle, arms out, laughing. People looked. I didn't care. I waved back. If you take one thing from this story, let it be this. Pay attention to who makes you feel safe enough to speak, and who benefits when you stay quiet. That difference matters. Sometimes the quietest people aren't weak. They're waiting for someone they trust enough to finally hear them. Thank you for listening to our story. If it resonated with you, take a moment to reflect. Who in your life truly listens? And who only hears what benefits them? More powerful stories.